Hello everyone, how are you all? I believe you all are doing great and you are preparing well for this examination that you have in the coming days. Today we are going to discuss an important aspect of this examination, that is modern Indian history. Now when we talk about modern Indian history per se, Indian history cannot be separated and studied in isolation. So during the start, let me discuss you the curriculum plan, the way we are going to take it. All right. So we are going to discuss about the curriculum plan. Now, this curriculum plan is basically divided into 45 days. Now, this 45 days also have been divided into two parts. So first would be for your prelims, and then second would be for mains examination. If we understand the nature of this particular examination, we will come to the conclusion that preliminary examination is all about facts, whereas mains examination is all about context. So during the first 7 days, that is your first 7 days, we are going to focus only on the facts. During the first 7 days, we are going to focus only on the facts. And in the remaining days, that is 45 minus 7 days, all right, which roughly brings us down to somewhere around 38 days. 38 to 37 days, we are going to focus on mains. Now, in the first 7 days, we will be noting and memorizing the facts. That's point number one. And secondly, we will be practicing all previous year questions and all probable questions from modern history. And if we talk about mains, what we are going to discuss, we are going to discuss model answers, model answers from previous year questions for the start, and followed by practice questions and evaluations. Having said that, let's quickly start our discussion for the day. So this is related to your modern Indian history, all right? Now, when we talk about modern Indian history, understand that there are different episodes. There are different episodes related to your modern history. So what are those episodes? So if we had to divide the phase of modern Indian history like this in a timeline, then I will tell you that it starts from Revolt of 1857. Revolt of 1857. Some periods ahead and a little backwards. So in this period basically is from 1800 till 1885. Now then there is another phase, that is your formation of Indian National Congress. Formation of Indian National Congress, that is in 1885. Formation of Indian National Congress till the period of 1930s. Till the period of 1930s. So this is one phase. Then another phase that you can also study, formation of Indian National Congress. All right, in this phase also there is one important thing for you to note, that is the role of Gandhi. The role of Gandhi. So there were two parallel forces. First was Indian National Congress and the other was Mahatma Gandhi. And the other was Mahatma Ji, who were basically leading the Great Indian Freedom Movement. Great Indian Freedom Movement. And then from 1930s, we have a period till 1947. So starting from your civil disobedience movement to Quit India movement to Indian Independence Act of 1947. All right, that's another phase. And then if we talk about the last phase, that is your 1947 to modern times. This is about your constitution. This is about the debates around constitution. This is about the formation of states, the formation of states in India. This is about the political system of India. This is about the political system of India. This is about the society of India. So period after 1947 can be grouped as, or can be said to have, inclining posture towards the polity of your country, towards the society of this country, which is why we say that political science, law, constitution, along with sociology becomes an important aspect for this area, along with the dynamics of economics. So this is the timeline in which we need to understand the different episodes that happened. All right. Having mentioned all of these aspects to you, what are we going to discuss as of now? So very first that you need to understand is of the context of Indian national movement. What could be the context of Indian national movement? In context, what do we study? In context, we will study the nature of the movement. What was the nature of the movement? Whether the nature was anti-colonial, whether the nature was anti-imperialistic, whether the nature of the movement was for immediate demands, all right, whether the Indian national movement was able to unite the masses per se, whether it was for removal of cultural atrocities, whether it had any socio-economic dynamics. These all angles can be covered in the nature of Indian national movement. All right, so that is the nature. The second part of Indian national movement is related to the role of society, the role of society, the role of intelligentsia, the role of intelligentsia. All right. So the role of society and the role of intelligentsia forms another important aspect. What did the society play? In society, we can talk about women, whether women part of Indian national movement. When did women first participate in the Indian national movement? What was the role of the children? What was the role of the middle class? What was the role of the middle class? What was the role of the right and the left? What was the role of the industrialists who were there? So this basically these all had direct relevance to the nature of the Indian national movement. And then we are also going to discuss about the outcomes of Indian national movement. Now, why do we study this? Why you are being told that these areas are important? Because these are the direct areas where direct questions appear. Where direct questions appear. See, this examination is such that it does not want you to be an expert of this history, but it wants you to understand the entire context, the pretext, the subtexts, all right, how it has influenced the modern policy. If you study the nature, whether the Indian national movement has any reflections in Constitution of India, whether the dynamics of the Indian national movement also regulates modern day foreign policy of India, whether does it have any direct impact on the political system of India, and the political system of India. So these are the natures, and this can also be related to the outcomes. So they are very, very intertwined with each other. All right. So quickly, we are going to discuss about the nature of national movement. So first index, as you see, is the nature. What is the nature of Indian national movement? All right, so there are different theories. When we talk about Indian national movement ka nature, then there are theories given by imperialist forces. These theories are basically the records, the letters, the reports, all right, submitted by the British officials who were at service in British India. So they call it that the relationship or the nature was basically of client patron. Client patron means that initially the Indian national movement was not for freedom. So they say that it was not for freedom. That they also say that they did not want the freedom from, they did not want freedom from, they did not want freedom from the crown. Rather, they wished the crown to be there and they were trying to be the cooperative forces. They were trying to be the cooperative forces. This is what the imperialistic forces mentioned. So what they mention about the famines, the droughts that happened, the atrocities on civil liberties that happened. So in that way, imperialist forces narrate that there were certain factions in the Indian national movement. There were certain factions who were using these atrocities, natural calamities, or the fault of the administration for their advantage to mobilize the masses. Now, this is the imperialistic forces telling you that it was a client-patron relationship. Then, if you read about more Indian national movement, then you come to the Indian narrative. The Indian narrative has been described by different historians like R.C. Majumdar, Bipin Chandra. All right. Then we have Romila Thapar in her book. And then we also have D.D. Basu to a certain extent, where they have mentioned that Indian narrative says that it was nationalist movement. So it was a nationalist movement with the knowledge of the India's past, with the knowledge of India's past, plus belief in self-governance. Belief in self-governance. So that was nationalist movement. Some also called this anti-imperialistic. So the difference between nationalist movement and the anti-imperialistic movements, the definition could be that nationalist movements were trying to dream about the future of this country, the way this country would be in the near future, the way the political forces would be, the way political systems would be devised out. Whereas if we talk about anti-imperialistic nature, it means that the entire objective of the Indian national movement was not to create a unique country free from the clutches, but to first remove the foreign forces from this land. So that is the basic definition or the difference in the definition. Also, adding in the nature of the Indian national movement, you see, Indian national movement led to the rise of middle class. Indian national movement led to the rise of the middle class population. Now, this middle class population was not only self-sufficient in terms of money, but it was also one of the highest number of people who were working for the British administrations, who were also educated. So rise of middle class plus impetus given to education. This basically led to the reincarnation or the self-belief that happened in various important factions of the Indian National Congress during the initial phases from 1885 till 1907. You will find that all the what we call who the forces we call as moderates were all educated. All right. So this was the rise of middle class plus education. Then you will also find that it was the at the same time you also see the rise of communal feelings. So communalism was also on the increase after different historic episodes. So this was the basic nature. These all forces developed during the Indian national movement. Communalism was there also during the Mughal Empire, during the Maratha Empire. Everything was there, but it was not so pertinent because the kings, the rulers were immediately ready to negotiate and settle. Whereas Indian national movement could not express the freedom that it wanted because ultimately various historians reveals that the Britishers were trying to take advantage of the wedges between the Indian society. So communalism, the growth of communalism was not tried to be pacified, rather intensified by the laws, the administration of the British imperialistic forces. So rise of communalism is also an important narrative. Also, what would be the further economic nature? So rise of economic theories of state was also an important contribution, or is can be attributed as the nature of an Indian national movement. So you will read about it as you will read about when you will read, you will say that there was this force called as capitalist forces who were on the rise. Then you will find that socialist forces were also on the rise. They will also find that communists were on the rise, Marxists were on the rise. So this is basically the nature of Indian national movement, all right, and a sense of, you can say, a sense of national integration, a sense of national integration was somehow being developed when we are talking about the Indian national movement. And now the second index reveals what is basically the role of Indian National Congress. So you see, Indian national movement is incomplete without the role of Indian National Congress. Now, many of the right-wing ideological people criticize today Indian National Congress and the current Congress party to be the completely different from Indian National Congress. That could be true to a certain extent, because Indian National Congress was always inclusive in character. Was always inclusive in character. When it was formed in 1885, it was not a party. When it was when it was formed, it was not a party. It was formed as a movement. So it was not a party. It was a movement. Later on, you will find that when I say it was inclusive in nature, basically you will find that it was divided into different factions, the moderates and the extremists. So the moderates believed in petitions and prayers, in which you will find W.C. Banerjee. W.C. Banerjee, Surendranath Banerjee, and there were different forces that you will find over here. All right, so these are the people who basically defined the Indian National Congress during that. Gopal Krishna Gokhale. All right, then there were also extremists like Lal Bal Pal. You must have heard Lal Bal Pal. All right, the famous is among them is Bal Gangadhar Tilak. So moderates and the extremists, though were very different in their ideologies, never went against each other. They did not work, they did not form any union that was against the ideology of Indian National Congress. They were all fighting, but their nature of fight was different. Their nature of putting things was different. Which is why we say that though there was a divide between moderates and the extremists, they did not act against each other. Rather, they always tried to protect each other before the British forces. So the left and the right, the left and the right, the left and the right protected each other. So whenever an extremist, while protesting, raising the voices through violent means, would get arrested, it would be the left winged people in the Indian National Congress who would fight for their bail, who would argue for their bail before the courts. So that is how they protected. And there was this concern for civil liberties. You will say that there is concern for civil liberties. So since they were fighting for the civil liberties of the population of India, the right to raise voices, the right to raise questions, all right, the right to deny, peaceful protest and everything, they were equally respectful towards each other's civil liberties. And the sessions of the Indian National Congress were heated debates, but a unanimous, open, democratic regime was taken. So then also you can see that the rise of democratic principles, because Indian National Congress as a movement was grounded on democratic principles. So rise of democratic principles was also an important role of Indian National Congress. When we say role, which means that not the definition of Indian National Congress, but the impetus that it added. In modern times also, you will find people with moderate ideologies, whereas you would find people subscribing to the extremist viewpoints that if you want to get rid of social atrocities, raise your voices, and not just in non-violent methods, but also in violent methods. So these are the important roles that you can say, or the areas where we need to study about the Indian National Congress. And how can Indian National Congress be complete without the role of Mahatma Gandhi? So the role of Gandhian styled politics. The role of Gandhian styled politics, if we talk about, because Gandhiji was always directing the Indian National Congress, or rather you can say suggesting Indian National Congress. So it cannot be complete without the satyagrahas, various satyagrahas that have happened in the past. This is the context of the history. Before diving into the facts, you need to understand the context of the history. All right. Context is more important than the facts. If you understand the entire backdrop, the entire skeleton, the dhacha of this Indian modern Indian history, all right, it will be very, very easy for you to remember the facts, because you will be making, the points, and then you will be connecting the dots, and it will be easier. All right. So that is what is the sole objective of this particular video is.